Driver sees girl sleeping on seat of abandoned bus and is shocked when Frank Miller was walking in the morning as he did every day since retiring from the public transportation company in Pittsburgh. At 57, that morning stroll through the old bus depot was his only distraction after 30 years of driving through the streets of the New York metropolitan area. It was then that he saw something moving inside one of the rusted vehicles, and his routine would change forever. As he approached the blue and white bus that had been parked for years at the back of the lot, Frank found a girl around 9 years old curled up asleep on the back seat, clutching a worn-out pink backpack. "Lily? Lily, wake up," whispered Frank, gently touching the child's shoulder. The girl opened her eyes, startled, but when she saw the kind face of the gray-haired man, she seemed to calm down a little. "Please don't tell Grandma I'm here," were the first words she said, her voice still heavy with sleep. Frank felt his heart tighten. What kind of situation was this? A child so small, sleeping alone in an abandoned place like this. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily," she replied, still hugging the backpack as if it were a treasure. "And why are you here, Lily? Do your parents know where you are?" The girl lowered her eyes, and Frank noticed tears beginning to form. "I run away from Grandma's house every afternoon to sleep here. It's the only place where I can dream about Mom." The child's words hit Frank like a punch to the chest. He himself had lost his wife 2 years earlier and knew the pain of longing all too well. "Your mother, she doesn't live with you?" "No. She disappeared after Dad and her fought a lot. Now I live only with Grandma Margaret." Frank looked around the abandoned bus. The seats were dusty, cobwebs hung in the corners, yet the girl had chosen this place as her refuge. Something very painful must have been happening at home. "How long have you been coming here, Lily?" "About 3 months, since school started again. I tell Grandma I'm going to the library after class, but I come here." "And why here? Why this bus?" Lily gave a sad smile that broke Frank's heart. "Because Mom used to work as a fare collector on a bus just like this one. When I was little, she'd sometimes take me with her. We'd play on the seats and she'd tell me stories. When I sleep here, I dream she comes back." Frank felt his eyes well up. How many times had he missed his own wife and sought out places that reminded him of her? "Sweetheart, your grandma must be worried. You can't stay here alone. It's dangerous." "She doesn't even care. She just watches her soap operas and complains that I'm too much trouble. Says if Dad hadn't married that woman, none of this would have happened." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Frank was silent for a few seconds, processing everything he'd heard. The situation was more complicated than he'd imagined. "And your dad? Where is he?" "I don't know. Grandma says he left too, that he doesn't want anything to do with us anymore, but I don't believe it. Dad loved me so much." "How can you be sure?" Lily opened the backpack and pulled out a yellowed envelope. "Because he wrote me a letter before he left." "Look." Frank carefully took the envelope. It was addressed to My Princess Lily in an adult's handwriting. "May I read it?" The girl nodded. Frank opened the letter and read silently. "My dear daughter, Dad needs to stay away for a while because of the problems with Mom. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. You're the most important thing in my life. When everything is settled, Daddy will come back for you. Don't forget you'll always be my little princess. With love, Daddy Jason." Roberto handed the letter back to Lily, who tucked it carefully into her backpack. "How long have you had this letter?" "Grandma gave it to me 2 years ago when I went to live with her. She said Daddy left it before he went away." Something wasn't adding up in the story. If her father had left such a loving letter, why hadn't he come back for his daughter in 2 years? And where exactly was the girl's mother? "Lily, tell me something. When your parents split up, where did your mother go?" "I don't know. One day she left for work and never came back. Grandma said she got tired of being a mom and ran off with another man." Roberto shook his head. He knew enough about life to understand that stories like this were rarely as simple as they seemed. "Listen, sweetheart. What time do you need to be home?" "Before 6 or Grandma will get suspicious. She thinks I stay at the library until then." "All right. How about I bring us some snacks tomorrow so we can eat here? We can talk more. Lily's eyes lit up. You'd really come back? No one ever wants to talk to me. Of course I'll come back. My name's Roberto, and you can call me Uncle Roberto, okay? Okay, Uncle Roberto. Roberto helped the girl gather her things and walked her to the warehouse exit. He watched her head down the street toward the nearby residential neighborhood, looking back and waving the whole way. That night, Roberto couldn't sleep well. Lily's story weighed heavily on him. He was sure there was much more to the situation than just a simple parental separation. The next day, he returned to the warehouse in the late afternoon, carrying a bag with sandwiches, juice, and cookies. Lily was already there, sitting on the same bench as the day before. Uncle Roberto, you really came. A promise is a promise, kiddo. Brought us some snacks. They sat on the bus benches, and Roberto noticed how the girl's eyes sparkled with joy at this small gesture of kindness. Lily, tell me more about your family. What was it like before your parents split up? It was really nice. We lived in a tiny house in Oakwood Heights. Daddy worked at a mechanic's shop, and Mommy worked on the bus. They fought sometimes, but I knew they loved each other. What about your grandmothers? Did you know Grandma Margaret before? I did, but we didn't visit much. Mommy always said Grandma didn't like her. Said Grandma thought Daddy married beneath him. Roberto nodded. He was starting to understand the family dynamics. And your mum's mother? Grandma Beverly lives far away. Mommy said she was sick, that's why she couldn't visit us. Lily, do you remember the day your mother left? The girl grew thoughtful for a moment. Yeah. She was crying that morning, talking to someone on the phone. Then she gave me a really tight hug and said she loved me so much. I thought it was weird because she never did that on normal days. Did you hear what she was saying on the phone? A little. She was saying, I have to go, Mom, you need me now. I thought she was talking to Grandma Beverly. Roberto felt a chill in his stomach. The story was getting stranger by the minute. And your dad? How did he react when he found out your mom was gone? He got really mad, yelled a lot, broke some things. Then he cried and held me tight. Said it was his fault, that he hadn't taken good care of Mommy. When did he leave? About 2 weeks later. Grandma Margaret showed up one morning and said I was going to live with her because Daddy couldn't take care of me alone. He was so sad, he couldn't even work right. Roberto processed all the information. He was becoming more and more convinced that there was something very wrong with that story. Lily, do you have anything of your mother's? Any keepsake? I do. She opened her backpack and pulled out a small, nearly empty perfume bottle. It's Mom's perfume. Sometimes I smell it and pretend she's here with me. Frank took the bottle and inhaled the sweet, floral scent. It was a simple perfume, the kind you buy at the drugstore, but to Lily, it was the most precious thing in the world. Is that why you come here, to feel her presence? Yes, and also because here I can talk to her without anyone telling me to stop. Grandma gets mad when I talk about Mom at home. What does Grandma say about your mother? That she was a bad woman, that she abandoned the family, that I should forget her and be grateful to have a roof over my head. Frank felt anger rising in his chest. How could someone be so cruel to a child? Lily, would you like me to try to find out where your parents are? The girl's eyes filled with hopeful tears. You could do that. I can try, but you have to promise me one thing. If I find out things that might make you sad, you'll talk to me about it, okay? I promise, Uncle Frank. They finished their snack and Frank walked Lily to the warehouse exit again, but this time he followed her from a distance to find out exactly where she lived. Her grandmother's house was about 10 blocks from the warehouse on a quiet street in Greenfield. It was a simple but well-kept house with a small front garden. Frank watched Lily go through the front door and saw an elderly woman with white hair appear at the window, closing the curtains shortly after. That night, Frank began his own investigation. First, he tried to remember if he knew any Jason who worked at a mechanic's shop in the area. The name was common, but maybe he could find some leads. He called a few old colleagues from the bus company and asked if they knew any fare collector named... Frank stopped. He realized he didn't even know Lily's mother's name. The next day, he returned to the warehouse early waiting for the girl to arrive. "Lily, I forgot to ask you something important yesterday. What's your mother's name?" "Sarah. Sarah Johnson Miller." "And your dad?" "Jason what?" "Jason Miller, but everyone calls him Jay." Frank wrote the names on a piece of paper. Now he had somewhere to start. "Lily, do you know which company your mother worked for?" "The same as you, I think. She always talked about the Pittsburgh Bus Company." Frank's heart raced. If Sarah had worked at the same company as him, it would be much easier to find information about her. "Do you remember what she looked like? So I can ask my friends about her." "Mom was pretty. She had long black hair, always tied in a ponytail. She was skinny and had a mole here on her face." Lily pointed to her left cheek. Frank closed his eyes, trying to remember. Sarah. Black hair, mole on her face. Suddenly, an image came to mind. He vaguely recalled a young fare collector who had worked at the company a few years earlier. She was a friendly girl, always smiling. "Lily, did your mother work on the route that went to Allentown?" "I think so. She always said she passed through downtown Allentown." Frank felt he was on the right track. He remembered Sarah now, though they had never worked together directly. She had left the company suddenly, about 2 years ago. "Listen, sweetheart. Tomorrow I'll talk to some friends who still work at the company. Maybe I can find out something about your mother." "Do you really think you can find her?" "We'll see, Lily. But remember what we talked about. Sometimes the truth can be hard to understand." "I understand, Uncle Frank. I just want to know the truth." Frank Miller spent the whole night thinking about how to approach the subject with his former co-workers. He decided he would be direct but discreet. The next day, he went to the bus company's garage. He found his old supervisor, Richard, who had always been a fair and observant man. "Richard, I need to ask you something about a former employee. Do you remember Sarah Johnson Miller, the fare collector who left about 2 years ago?" "I sure do. Sarah was a good worker. She left suddenly, said she had urgent family problems." "Family problems?" "Yeah. She came here crying. Said her mother was very sick out in the country and she needed to go take care of her. Quit on the spot, didn't even want to work her notice." Frank felt his heart race. Lily had said her maternal grandmother was sick. "Do you know where she went?" "Not exactly, but I remember her mentioning something about Omaha. Said her mother lived there." "And you never heard anything else about her after that?" "No, but now that you mention it, it's strange she never came back. Usually, when someone leaves for family reasons, they either return after a while or at least get in touch." Frank thanked him for the information and left the company with a heavy heart. If Sarah had left to care for her sick mother, why hadn't she contacted her daughter in 2 years? He decided he needed more information before telling Lily anything. He searched online for Jason Miller, who worked at a mechanic shop in the area. He found a few, but none in Oakwood Heights. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out as we're just getting started. Now, back to the story. Then he had an idea. He went back to the neighborhood where Lily lived and started talking to the neighbors, pretending to look for an old friend named Jason. At a bakery near her grandmother's house, he got his first real lead. "Jason Miller. Of course I remember him," said the baker, a heavy-set man in his 50s. "Lived up the street with his wife and little girl, but they left about 2 years ago." "Do you know where they went?" "Jason moved to a tiny apartment downtown in Pittsburgh. His wife just vanished out of nowhere, poor guy. He was really shaken up." "And the daughter?" "Stayed with her paternal grandmother, Mrs. Margaret. Tough woman, that one. Never liked her daughter-in-law." Frank felt like he was putting the puzzle together. Jason hadn't abandoned his daughter. He was living nearby and probably didn't even know Lily thought he'd left her. "Do you know exactly where he's living now?" "In an old building on Washington Avenue near the train station. Works at a shop nearby too." Frank thanked him and left the bakery, his heart pounding. Now he had to decide what to do with this information. That afternoon he went to meet Lily at the warehouse, but she wasn't there. He waited until 6 in the evening, but nothing. Worried, he went to her grandmother's house and rang the bell. An elderly woman with white hair, a stern expression, and dressed in black answered the door. "What do you want?" "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Frank Miller. I wanted to talk to you about your granddaughter, Lily." The woman's face hardened even more. What business do you have with my granddaughter? Are you Mrs. Margaret? I am, and I don't like strangers asking about the girl. Mrs. Margaret, I found Lily a few days ago in a place that might be dangerous for her. I just wanted to talk about it. What place? Frank hesitated. If he mentioned the warehouse, Lily would lose her refuge. Do you know where Lily spends her afternoons when she leaves school? At the library, of course. She's always been studious. Are you sure about that? Margaret narrowed her eyes. What are you trying to say? Nothing serious, Mrs. Margaret. I just think it might be good for you to talk to her a little more. She seems to be going through a tough time. Tough time? That girl has a roof over her head, food, clean clothes, and school. I don't know what tough time you're talking about. She misses her parents. Her parents abandoned the family. She needs to get used to reality. Frank felt anger rising. Mrs. Margaret, with all due respect, a 9-year-old shouldn't have to get used to her parents' absence without at least understanding what happened. You have no business interfering with how I raise my granddaughter, and if I find out you've been filling her head with fantasies about her parents coming back, I'll take action. The door slammed shut in Frank's face. He walked home even more worried. Why hadn't Lily shown up at the bus depot? Had her grandmother found out something? The next day, Frank went back to the depot early and waited. Lily only appeared late in the afternoon, her eyes red from crying. Lily, I was worried. What happened? Uncle Frank, Grandma found out I wasn't going to the library. The librarian called home asking why I hadn't returned a book, and Grandma realized I never checked any out. What did she do? She locked me in my room yesterday and said I can't leave the house after school anymore. I only got out today because she had a doctor's appointment. Frank hugged the girl as she sobbed uncontrollably. Take it easy, sweetheart. We'll figure this out. Uncle Frank, Grandma burned all my letters. What letters? I wrote letters to Mom every day and kept them in a box under my bed. Grandma found them and burned everything. She said I needed to stop living in a fantasy. Frank's chest ached. How could anyone be so cruel to a child? Lily, I need to tell you something important. I found out some things about your parents. The girl's eyes lit up with hope. What did you find out? Your mother didn't leave because she was a bad person, like your grandma says. She left to take care of Grandma Beverly, who was very sick. I knew it. I knew Mom wouldn't just abandon me. And your father didn't leave because he didn't want you. He lives nearby and probably doesn't even know how much you're suffering. Lily started crying again, but this time they were tears of relief. So they still love me. I'm sure they do, sweetheart. Uncle Frank, can you take me to see Dad? Frank hesitated. The situation was delicate. If he did this without permission, he could land in serious trouble. Lily, it's not that simple. I need to talk to your father first, explain everything. But what if he doesn't want to see me? Sweetheart, from the letter he wrote you, I'm sure he wants to see you very much. Frank spent the whole night thinking about how to approach Jason. He decided to be direct and honest. The next day he went to the auto shop on Washington Avenue. He found a dark-haired man around 35, his hands covered in grease, working under a car. Excuse me, are you Jason Miller? The man slid out from under the car and looked at Frank curiously. Yeah, can I help you? My name's Frank. I need to talk to you about your daughter, Lily. Jason's face changed completely. He turned pale and his hands began to shake. Lily? Did something happen to her? Is she okay? Physically, she's fine, but emotionally, for God's sake, tell me what's going on. Frank saw the desperation in the man's eyes and knew his suspicions were right. Jason hadn't abandoned his daughter out of lack of love. Jason, your daughter thinks you abandoned her. She spends her afternoons alone in an abandoned bus depot because it's the only place she feels close to her mother. Jason leaned against the car as if he might faint. What do you mean? My mother told me Lily was fine, that she didn't want to see me, that she blamed me for Sarah leaving. Your mother lied, Jason. Lily cries every day, missing you and her mother. She has a letter you supposedly wrote to her before leaving home. What letter? I never wrote any letter. Frank felt a chill. The puzzle pieces were fitting together in a disturbing way. Jason, tell me exactly what happened when you and Sarah separated. Jason sat on a toolbox, his hands covering his face. Sarah got a call from her mother saying she was very sick and needed her to come take care of her in Omaha. I said we could bring Lily along, but Sarah thought it was better to leave her in school here. She said it would only be for a little while. And then Sarah left, promising she'd be back in a few weeks. But a month passed, then 2, and nothing. I tried calling, but her mother's phone was always disconnected. And your mother? My mother always hated Sarah, eh? When Sarah left, she started saying I should accept that I'd been abandoned, that a woman who leaves her husband and daughter is no good. How did Lily end up at your mother's house? I was so depressed I couldn't work properly. I couldn't take care of Lily the way she deserved. My mother offered to keep her for a while until I got back on my feet. She said it would be better for the girl to have a woman looking after her. Frank shook his head. The situation was worse than he'd imagined. Jason, why didn't you go back for your daughter? I tried, so many times. But my mother always said Lily was fine, that she didn't want to see me, that I'd only traumatize her more by showing up and disappearing. She said when I was really ready to be a father, then I could come for her. And you believed that? I was broken, Frank. I lost the woman I loved. I lost my daughter. I lost my job. I thought maybe my mother was right, that I really was a bad father. Jason, your daughter loves you desperately. She carries that letter you supposedly wrote like it's her most precious treasure. I never wrote any letter, Frank. I'm sure of it. Then your mother forged it to make Lily believe you left by choice. Jason stood up suddenly, his face red with anger. That woman destroyed my family. She made my daughter suffer for 2 years because of her hatred for Sarah. Jason, we need to think calmly. Lily is in a lot of pain, but we have to handle this carefully so we don't traumatize her further. I want to see my daughter now. I understand, but your mother will try to stop you, and Lily is very fragile. We need to do this the right way. Jason took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. What do you suggest? First, we need to find Sarah. If she's taking care of her sick mother, she probably doesn't know how much her daughter is suffering. But how? I tried so many times. Do you have your mother-in-law's address in Omaha? Yes, but the phone never works. Then we'll go there. Jason looked at Frank with gratitude. Why are you doing this for us? You don't even know us. Because I understand the pain of a child who lost her parents, and because your daughter deserves to have her family back. They agreed to meet Saturday morning to go to Omaha. Frank returned to the warehouse to find Lily and share the news. The girl was sitting on her usual bench, but this time she wasn't alone. A woman in her 40s, thin with dark hair, was sitting beside her. Frank stopped at the bus entrance, unable to believe his eyes. Lily? The girl turned and smiled through her tears. Uncle Frank, Mommy's back. Mommy's here. The woman stood up and looked at Frank with gratitude. You must be Frank, the one my daughter talks about so much. I'm Sarah. Thank you so much for taking care of Lily. Frank stepped onto the bus, still in shock. How did you find her? Lily sent me a letter, but she said she didn't know your address. She really didn't, but she's smarter than we thought. Sarah smiled, hugging her daughter. She wrote the letter addressed to Sarah Johnson Miller, Lily's mum, Omaha, and asked a school friend to mail it. And it got to you? Yes, it did. The town mailman is my cousin. He recognized my name and handed it to me personally yesterday. Frank sat down, still processing everything. Sarah, I need to tell you some things about what happened while you were away. Lily already told me everything. About Grandma Margaret, about Jason thinking I abandoned you all, about the lies. And your mother, how is she? Sarah sighed. My mother passed away 3 months ago, Frank. Lily squeezed her mother's hand tighter. Why didn't you come back after Grandma Beverly died? Because I was scared. Scared Jason wouldn't want me anymore. Scared Lily might have forgotten me, scared to face Grandma Margaret. Mom, I could never forget you, Lily said. I came here every day just to feel close to you. Sarah looked around the old bus. Why here, sweetheart? Because it looks like the bus you used to work on. Here I could dream that you'd come back. Sarah began to cry. Forgive me, honey. Forgive me for taking so long to return. I forgive you, Mom. But now we'll stay together forever, right? Yes, my love, forever. Frank cleared his throat. Sarah, there's one more thing. I talked to Jason yesterday. Sarah's face tensed. How is he? Destroyed. Thinking you abandoned him, thinking he's a bad father. Your mother-in-law made him believe Lily didn't want to see him anymore. That woman... Jason loves you, Sarah, and he loves Lily more than anything. He didn't leave you by choice. I know, Sarah whispered. I always knew. Jason is a good man. I was the one who made the mistake of leaving without properly explaining. Mom, is Daddy coming home? Sarah looked at her daughter, then at Frank. I don't know, sweetheart. A lot has happened these past 2 years. But do you still love each other? Sarah was silent for a moment. I still love your father, Lily, but I don't know if he still loves me. He does, Frank said. I'm sure of it. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now back to the story. Just then, footsteps approached the bus. Mrs. Margaret appeared at the door, her face red with anger. I knew it! I knew this girl was up to something. She stormed onto the bus. And you, she pointed at Sarah, how dare you show your face after 2 years? Mrs. Margaret, Sarah said, standing up, you know exactly why I left. Oh, I do, because you're irresponsible and abandoned your family. I left to take care of my dying mother. Lies! You left because you got tired of being a mother and a wife. Frank stood up too. Mrs. Margaret, you spent 2 years lying to your granddaughter and your son. You faked a letter, made a child suffer, tore a family apart. Who are you to judge me? This woman ruined my son's life. Grandma, Lily said, her voice trembling, why did you do this? Why did you lie to Daddy and say I didn't want to see him? Margaret looked at her granddaughter and for a moment her face softened. Because I didn't want you to suffer like I did when your grandfather left me. Grandpa left you? Not exactly, he died. But he died working himself to death to provide for the family, because I always demanded more and more. When he left, I was alone with your little father, and I promised I'd never let anyone hurt my family again. Frank began to understand the woman's twisted motivation. Mrs. Margaret, but Jason isn't your husband, and he wasn't going to abandon Lily. All men end up leaving, she shouted. She might as well get used to it now. Grandma, said Lily, Mr. Frank taught me that sometimes the people we love go away, but that doesn't mean they stopped loving us. Margaret looked at her granddaughter, then at Sarah, then at Frank. For the first time, she seemed to realize the harm she'd caused. I just wanted to protect you, she whispered. Protect by lying? Asked Sarah. By making a child suffer? Grandma, Lily said, stepping closer, I know you love me, but lying doesn't protect anyone. It just hurts more. Margaret broke down in tears. I ruined everything. My grandson hates me, my granddaughter will leave me, and you'll take her away. Mrs. Margaret, said Frank, it's not too late to fix things. How? By helping bring the family together instead of tearing it apart. Just then, they heard footsteps approaching. Jay appeared in the bus doorway out of breath. Lily! He rushed in and hugged his daughter, who ran into his arms. Daddy, Daddy, I knew you hadn't abandoned me. Jay kissed his daughter's face over and over, crying, Never, my princess. Daddy would never leave you. He looked over Lily's head and saw Sarah standing there, hesitant. Sarah, he said, his voice thick. Hi, Jay. They held each other's gaze for a few seconds, 2 years of pain and longing between them. How's your mother? Jay asked. Sarah lowered her eyes. She passed away 3 months ago. Jay felt the weight of guilt in his chest. Forgive me, I should have tried to find you. No, Jay, I should have explained better before I left. I should have insisted on taking Lily with me. Both of you stop blaming yourselves, Lily said, still in her father's arms. What matters is we're all together now. Margaret, who had stayed quiet until then, approached her son. Jay, she said, her voice breaking, forgive me. Jay looked at his mother, anger still written on his face. "Mum, you made my daughter suffer for 2 years. You made her believe I didn't love her. I know. I was wrong. So wrong. Why, Mom? Why did you do it?" Margaret took a deep breath. "Because I was afraid of losing you too. After your father died, you were all I had. When Sarah left, I thought it was my chance to keep my family to myself." Jay shook his head. "But you ended up losing us anyway, didn't you?" "Jay," said Frank, "your mother made terrible mistakes, but she acted out of love, even if it was twisted. How can you defend her?" "I'm not defending what she did, but I'm saying Lily needs her grandmother too, and your mother deserves a chance to make things right." Lily slipped out of her father's arms and went to her grandmother. "Grandma, will you help us be a family again?" Margaret hugged her granddaughter, crying. "I will, sweetheart. I will." Jay and Sarah looked at each other again. "Sarah," he said, do you still want to try? Can you ever forgive me for not coming after you?" "Jay, I never stopped loving you, but so much has changed these past 2 years. I know. Rebuilding our family won't be easy." "But will you try?" Lily asked hopefully. Sarah looked at her daughter, then at Jay. "We'll try, sweetheart." Frank smiled, moved. After so many years alone, seeing a family reunited reminded him of the value of those bonds. "Frank," Jay said, "how can I ever thank you for everything you've done for us? By taking good care of this special girl, and by turning this place into something beautiful." "What do you mean?" asked Sarah. "Lily spent months coming here every day. This bus became a sacred place for her. What if we made it a truly special place?" "What are you thinking?" asked Lily. "How about a library? A library just for kids?" Lily's eyes sparkled. "Really, Uncle Frank? Why not? The depot's been abandoned for years. We can ask for permission to use this bus and turn it into a community library." "I'd love to help," said Sarah. "Me too," said Jason. "And I can make some snacks for the kids who come here," said Margaret shyly. Frank looked at all of them and smiled. "Then it's settled. We'll turn the place where Lily suffered into a place where other children will find joy." 6 months later, the blue and white bus shone once more. The windows had been cleaned, the seats refurbished, and the inside walls were painted with colorful drawings made by the neighborhood kids themselves. Lily, now living again with her parents in a small but loving home, came every Saturday to read stories to the younger children. Sarah had gotten a job at a nearby school, Jason had returned to work with renewed energy, and Margaret had become the neighborhood's favorite grandma, always with fresh cookies for anyone visiting the library. Frank, who had officially become Lily's grandpa of the heart, coordinated the library's activities with the enthusiasm of someone who had found a new purpose in life. One sunny Saturday, as Lily told the story of Little Red Riding Hood to a group of attentive children, Frank sat in the driver's seat and watched the scene. The bus that had once held the loneliness of a sad little girl now echoed with laughter and discovery. "Uncle Frank," said Lily when she finished the story, "do you think Mum and Dad will have more kids? Why do you ask?" "Because if they do, I want to teach my little brother or sister to read here in our special bus." Frank smiled, moved. Sometimes the most beautiful stories begin in the most unexpected places, with the most unlikely encounters. The girl who had cried alone in an abandoned bus had become the light brightening other children's dreams. And the retired driver who had just been out for a morning stroll had discovered it's never too late to build a family, even if it's one chosen by the heart and not by blood. That afternoon, as the sun set over Pittsburgh, the bus library prepared for another evening. The children left, carrying borrowed books and promises to return the following week. Lily helped Frank organize the books on the makeshift shelves. "Uncle Frank, are you happy?" "Very happy, sweetheart. And you?" "Very happy too. You know why?" "Why?" "Because I learned family isn't just who you're born with. Family is who stays with you, even when everything seems lost." Frank hugged the girl, his heart overflowing with gratitude. He had lost a wife but gained an entire family. He had found a lost child, but in truth, he had found himself. When they stepped off the bus that evening, Frank looked back one more time. The vehicle that had once been abandoned now pulsed with life, waiting for another day of stories, discoveries, and dreams come true. "See you tomorrow, old friend," he whispered to the bus, as if it could hear him. And maybe it could. Maybe places that hold so much love end up developing a soul of their own, forever holding the memory of the miracles they've witnessed. The story of Lily, Frank, Jason, Sarah, and even Margaret proved that sometimes you have to get completely lost to truly find yourself. And that true love always finds its way home, even if it's through the dusty aisles of an abandoned bus. The end. Now tell me, what did you think of this story of perseverance and reunion? Do you believe Frank made the right choice by getting involved in his family's life? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit like if the story moved you. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other touching stories like this one. Story end.